Nearly a week after a horrific chemical weapons attack in the Syrian city of Douma, President Donald Trump, in cooperation with his French and British counterparts, has approved a set of strikes against targets associated with the regime of Bashar al-Assad. After days of speculation and public threats suggesting the operation could be imminent, the announcement of the strikes finally came in the evening April 14, 2018, with the president addressing the nation directly from the White House. Trump said in his speech that the strikes were targeting the Syrian government's chemical weapons capabilities. More importantly, Trump said that the campaign against the Syrian regime of dictator Bashar al-Assad would continue until such time as it was no longer necessary in order to send a strong deterrent message. The combined American, British and French response to these atrocities will integrate all instruments of our national power, military, economic and diplomatic, Trump said in his address. We are prepared to sustain this response until the Syrian regime stops its use of prohibited chemical agents. Trump also made a direct appeal to Russia to join the United States and its allies in pressuring Assad to abandon the use of chemical weapons. He made a less direct statement to Iran, the Syrian government's other principal benefactor. Both countries have already criticized the United States over its threats to intervene again against Assad's regime and have threatened to retaliate in kind. Russia must decide if it will continue down this dark path or if it will join with civilized nations as a force for stability and peace, he said. Hopefully someday we'll get along with Russia and maybe even Iran, but maybe not. Update, 6:21 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Explosions are being heard around Damascus. We also have good information that fighter aircraft were involved, likely launching air-launched cruise missiles from over the eastern Mediterranean with the help of tanker support. French Scalp EG, the UK's Storm Shadow, and the American JASSM are likely to have been used, as well as Tomahawk cruise missiles from US and UK submarines, as well as from US Navy destroyers. Those fighters may also be providing air cover for American and Allied ships in the region. Here is the statement from Theresa May. Update, 6:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Talk of B-1Bs out of Al Udeid involved in these strikes, likely firing standoff weaponry from the east. Also, we must note, this sounds like a protracted air campaign. What we are seeing now is likely also a destruction of enemy air defenses, dead campaign so that other aircraft, namely B-2s, can get in and do some heavy hitting against hardened targets. It sounds like at least 4 major population centers in Syria are under attack. Update, 6:41 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Here's the first footage of RAF fighters recovering at RAF Cyprus following a wave of strikes. Once again, we believe the strikes are all standoff in nature at this time, but that can change as Assad's air defense network is degraded. Storm Shadow missiles from RAF GR-4s confirmed by CNN. CNN also reports Syria's 4th Division and Republican Guard being struck heavily. As predicted, this is a far larger campaign with a far wider scope target-wise than a year ago. Also, regime targets are being struck as well according to multiple reports. Syrian authorities say they have shot down 13 missiles. Obviously this is not worth much as they always shoot down something according to them. Details are just beginning to emerge and this post will be updated in real time with all the information we can find. Update, 6:52 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hezbollah targets seem to be on the table for this operation and the Syrian PR response is already underway. Update, 6:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Lots of different local Syrian reports and others that Russia's airbase has gone active. Amazingly, this commercial flight is crossing over northern Syria. Not where all the action is, but surely a lot of U.S. aircraft in that area. Just as we have predicted. It seems that some attacks are responses. The attacks are occurring not too far from Russia's master airbase south of Latakia. Some tracer fire seen in Damascus as well as smoke. Update, 7:09 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Madison Dunford Pentagon brief. Only retaliatory action has been surfaced to air missile activity. No losses so far reported. The target set has been executed and follow-up strikes don't sound like they are imminent at this time. Russia was not warned of the attack, but the targets were chosen to avoid Russian deaths. Dunford says the airspace was deconflicted with Russians via their hotline before the attack, yet at the same time says they did not warn Russia, which is laughable. They did not tell them about specific targets likely. Mattis says again, that no additional attacks are planned, so that seems to conflict at least in abstract from Trump's statement. Late yesterday Mattis said he received proof of the chemical attack. Dunford say that the deconfliction information given to the Russians may have gone unnoticed as unique by Russia's military. This is once again laughable. The United States does not operate in western Syria aside from unmanned aircraft operations. As such, Russia was noticed of this attack, albeit not as to the targets that would be hit. Mattis warns Russia will execute a massive disinformation campaign over the coming days. More key points from Mattis and Dunford. Mattis says that the U.S. has a vital national security interest in deterring chemical weapons use in Syria and anywhere else, and President Trump conducted the strike under his Article 2 authority as commander-in-chief to defend American interests. Mattis. Clearly, the Assad regime did not get the message last year. Mattis described strike as separate from the campaign against ISIS and directed at the Syrian regime. He called on responsible nations to denounce Assad and join with the U.S. government in pressuring Assad. Dunford. Strikes began at 9 p.m. and there are no reports of casualties among the strike force at this time. The targeting process included specific efforts to mitigate collateral damage and the possibility of threat to nearby communities from the release of chemical agents. One target was a scientific research facility in the Damascus area. A second target was a chemical weapons storage facility west of Homs, said to be the primary stockpile of sarin and precursor chemicals. A third target was another chemical weapons storage facility and associated command post. Mattis. The U.S. and its allies are prepared to respond to further CW use in the future, but said that this particular operation is a one-time shot. Mattis. I am confident the Syrian regime conducted a chemical attack on innocent people, involving at least one chemical agent, but that there might have been two. If this gas is chlorine alone, that would be strange, as the U.S. has not responded to dozens of chlorine attacks over the last year. Roughly double the number of munitions were supposedly used in this operation compared to last year, according to Mattis and Dunford. Update. 7:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. NATO chimes in on these strikes. Russia is making its first comments on the strikes. And now Russia's U.S. Embassy chimes in. Some new footage of pre-strike departures. Rafales loaded with Scalp EG cruise missiles. Update. 7:56 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It seems like more targets may have been hit, possibly air defense targets to help incoming missiles get through. Could Iran activate Hezbollah for large-scale barrages on Israel as a response? Some basic reporting on assets used at this time. Keep in mind this could all change. Facilitating USAF air power back to their bases. U.S. Ambassador to Germany is trolling Berlin for not participating in the strikes. Update. 8:22 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have this exclusive photo that is said to show the B-1B used in the strikes, all loaded up with JASSMs as we suspected. This sortie will mark the first combat use of this weapon. Anonymous. Update. 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova just stated the following, quoted from RT. First, the Syrian people was subjected to Arab Spring, then Islamic State, is, formerly ISIS, ISIL, now two, smart, American missiles. A strike was carried out on the capital of a sovereign state, which for many years has been trying to survive under the threat of terror. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said. She blamed all those who claim moral leadership in this world, who declare their exceptionalism, for the attack, noting that, you should be really exceptional to attack Syria at a time when it was given a chance for a peaceful future. The Russian Navy may have watched Tomahawk launches up close and personal. This matches recent reporting on Russian naval movements in the Mediterranean. As we mentioned earlier, it looks like U.S. F-16s and F-15s provided counter-air screening against launches of Russian fighters and possible anti-ship missile attacks while this was underway. Update. 8:55 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Supposedly Syria is firing on American drones now. Gotta get that bomb damage assessment. But really, we have no idea what unmanned capabilities are being used for this. A Global Hawk did a run along the Syrian coast after the strikes, and its sensors can peer quite deeply into Syria. Update. 9:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Syrian government is now claiming to have shot down an unmanned aircraft using 2K-12 Cub SA-6 gainful medium-range surface-to-air missile. So far there has been no independent confirmation and there are no details as to the type of drone they're claiming to have destroyed. In addition, a spokesperson for Trump's National Security Council has reportedly told the Associated Press that the president's tweets earlier in the week did, in fact, signal a clear intent to strike Syria in the near future. Update. 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Russia has now issued a statement that none of its facilities in Syria came under attack. This is not surprising, as the United States said it focused entirely on Assad's regime, and because targeting Russian forces directly would have risked a much more serious escalation. More interestingly, an anonymous source, according to Reuters, is now claiming that Russia tipped off the Syrians to the incoming attack, which could have happened when they received the American deconfliction alerts. This supposedly gave them time to evacuate some of the target sites. Update, 9:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Check out this video that the Syrian government says shows U.S. missiles being engaged by Syrian air defenses. Update, 10:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. More from the Syrian government. The Ministry of Information calls on citizens not to trust any media reports, which are deliberately or undeliberately exaggerating the number of targets and consequences of the trilateral aggression. Several missiles of the three countries, which struck a research facility, have only caused material damage to a building, which includes an educational center and scientific labs. Russia's MOD claims nothing entered the air defense zones around their missile systems. Whatever that means, none of cruise missiles launched by the U.S. and its allies did not enter the zone of responsibility of the Russian air defenses, covering objects in Tartus and Hmyr, the Russian Defense Ministry has announced. Update, 10:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There is a bunch of tanker activity over the Mediterranean again. Update, 10:51 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are getting the first images of RAF tornadoes launching with Storm Shadow missiles under their bellies. Crown Copyright Update, 11:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Another first during this operation, a French FREMM frigate launched at least 3 naval cruise missiles. These weapons are a close relative of the Scalp air-launched cruise missiles fired by Rafales during the same operation mission. Hat tip to Air Defense Net for the heads up. Based on our sources, at least 4 F-16s and 4 F-15s spent a lot of time between Cyprus and the Syrian coast as part of a single flight. These are the jets that likely provided counter-air screening, basically shutting down Russia's airbase and being ready to engage cruise missiles fired in that direction at Allied sea or land targets. The F-16s may have played a contingency seed role and/or may have delivered missiles for the initial strike as well. They seemed to have stayed on station for hours during and following the strike. Contact the author, Tyler at thedrive.com. Don't forget to sign up your email address.